Okay, so now we're going to talk about rent adjustments, and these are very, very important because this can be for different things. This can be accrued expense. This could be accrued income. Accrued means you haven't paid your rent yet, or your tenant hasn't paid you yet. This could also be a prepaid expense, which means you paid your rent before you had to. This could be income received in advance if your tenant paid you before they had to. So this could be very different things, which means we always have to know how to do rent adjustments. We have done a few during the week. There were just two, which I gave you yesterday, that I'm not sure if you're very clear on what to do. So I just thought I'd remind you about these two kinds of adjustments. They were taken from past papers. I did not make them up. So let's quickly discuss them. Okay, this was the question that I gave you yesterday. If you didn't do it, that's okay. Please take a minute to try to calculate the answer now. So pause the video, get out your calculator, your pen, try to calculate what you think the amount is. Pause. Okay, cool. So this is how I calculate the amount. Remember, there are always many, many, many different ways of calculating something. So my way is not the only way. If you calculated it in another way, but you still got the same final answer, the same amount, you made the same entry, then you should be good to go. So this is what I do. I say the total rent income amount, and then I say, hey, for how many months did I pay the increase? I paid it from January till August. Don't forget that you paid, or the tenant paid, for 14 months. The tenant paid 2 extra months. So you have to remember that. So from January to August is 8 months. So for 8 months, there was this increase. And if I say, hey, the total in the trial balance minus all that extra increase divided by the total number of months, that's how much my initial rent was. That means this was the amount before the increase. After the increase, the amount was 7,800. If you multiply 7,800 by 7, oh, not by 7, it should be by 2. By 2. Because remember that this is the amount that the tenant paid you before they had to. This was income received in advance for the month of July and August, so 2 months. Okay, so it's really easy. Like I said, there are different ways of doing this. My way is not the only way at all. This is not the right way. This is just one of the ways to do it. There is also, you can also make rent X and say 6X plus 8 into X plus 700, and then do the whole equation, and that's not wrong, so that's okay. So before you even do the calculation, you need to know things you need to ask yourself is to say, hey, we want to calculate rent before, we want to calculate rent after, how many months in total. You should always ask yourself, how many months in total? 14, not 12. It's not 12. So you need to remember this in this calculation. You need to ask yourself, how many months after increase? How many months before increase? So when I calculate things like this, I always ask myself all these questions and I write down the answers. This is 8. I write down all the answers and then I calculate. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, cool. I hope you understand. Once again, if you have any questions, please, please, please ask me. Okay, the next one. Again, if you didn't do it, please take a moment to pause and calculate this amount now. So pause. Okay, so once again, I don't really know if you stop the video and actually try to calculate it, but I will now explain the answer to you. Once again, there are many ways to calculate it. This is how I do it. I say that this was the total amount, okay, right here at the top. And then I ask myself, what is the total amount of months? Just like in the calculation before, here, you always have to ask yourself all these questions. So how many months in total? 10 months, not 12. What was the increase? 15%. How many months was it before the increase? And the increase was on the 1st of March. The year end was 31st August. That means that there were 6 months before the increase. There were 4 months after the increase. And this is how I calculate this, okay? This is the 6 months before. This is the 4 months after. How did I get 1.15? It's actually 100% plus 15%. So you can say 115%, but this is what I do. It's the same thing. And this is the amount before the increase. The amount after the increase is calculated by obviously multiplying this by 115%. Okay, any questions? Let me know. I hope you're still okay.